question?
Yeah.
We had one question here. Folks were asking, what are the exams in the transition combo plan again, or what are the exams in the 5-exam plan? So from ARE, this is a test. We'll see if I pass. For ARE 4.0, it's construction documents and services, site planning, and programming, planning, and practice. And then for the ARE 5.0, it's exams 4 and 5, which are project planning and design, and project design and documentation. How did I do?
I think that's pretty good.
I think that's right. And if you notice, there's some overlap of the names of the tests you already took to the ones you're taking.
Yeah.
So you have a base of study knowledge. Construction documents will appear on your 5.0 exam. Site planning will appear on your 5.0 exam too. So you get a little studying in beforehand for your 5.0 exams.
So it's worth noting, just for those who haven't sort of looked at the way that 5.0 is ordered, is that there's so 4.0 is 7 different exams, and each one is a different topic. Like we said, there's a lot of back and forth between them, but each one conceptually is a different topic. 5.0 is 6 different exams, which is set up as 2 of the exams are sort of pulled away and a little separate. One is sort of an overall idea about program, project, how a project is sort of put together, and so it's all of the information about the overarching idea of how a project is going to go, the contracts and all that kind of stuff, but also kind of working with clients and all of those kinds of things. And then there's another overall one, which is a practice management one, and that's about, well, how do you organize a practice? How do you put teams together? How do you deal with RFPs and RFQs, and how do you think about how insurance is going to work, and all of those things. So those 2 sort of stand alone a bit, and then there's 4 exams which are in sequence, and those 4 exams start at programming, and then there's a sort of planning and design one, and then there's a planning and design and documentation one, and then there's one that's about construction. And so if you think of those 4 as a sequence, 1, 2, 3, 4, though starting at 3, so it's 3, 4, 5, 6. If you think of those as that sequence, then you can kind of get a pretty good picture of kind of the idea behind what's going on. And in the transition, you do the 3 that Marc mentioned, and then the middle 2 of that sequence of 4. So not the programming one, which would be the first one, because presumably you've already done that in programming, planning, and practice and site planning. But then the next one, which is really about kind of, all right, we've got a program, we have an idea of what we need to do. Now we're in the design phase, so we're doing kind of design development, schematic design type work. What would be all the issues that would show up there? And those issues would be, well, structural issues. What kind of basic systems in terms of orientation and fenestration and those kinds of relationships, and what kinds of issues of contracts and working with a client show up at that period. And then the next one, which would be, all right, now you're in the CD set phase, getting ready for permits and bidding and all of that. So you're really doing, it's like if you've gone through the design process, now you're taking that design and you're figuring out how to document it and communicate it to other people. So now we're getting into structural questions would be things like, how many bolts go into this? What's the actual sizing on this? What kind of systems? How much CFM is going to go? It becomes much more kind of a detailed type question. And how do you communicate those things? But again, it'll be about contracts. It'll be about systems. It'll be about structures. It'll be about planning and design issues. It'll be about egress. Like all of those things can show up in both of those exams. So the thing that I'm kind of getting at here, and then eventually the 6th one is, I think, going to be a relatively simple one comparatively, but that 4 and 5, those 2 that you would take in that transition, those are going to be monster exams, right? I mean, these are not going to be small exams. These are going to be 2 big exams, but anybody who's taken 5 is also going to have to do those 2 big exams. But these are going to be much bigger exams, I think, and they're going to be much more exhausting than the 4.0 exams.
Yeah, and there's also a calculator on NCARB. If you've taken some from 4.0, maybe not all 3 are the right 3 that you need to take to do the 5, and you're thinking about jumping in the deep end and going into 5.0, you can just type in the ones that you've done in the little drop-down menu, and it'll tell you, generate the test you would take in 5.
Yeah, and you absolutely want to have it, like, you want to know exactly what you're getting into, because there's zero reason to, like, just start randomly taking some in 4 and then jump to 5. You could very easily have to take all of 5 after you've taken a bunch in 4 if you haven't gone through the process and really thought it through.
So before we hop over to our last question here, we do have a question from the audience online. If you take the transition plan but fail the 2 of ARE 5.0, can you go back to taking all the ARE 4.0 exams, or is there no going back?
All or nothing.
Yep.
All or
You
nothing.
commit.
It's a transition.
If you transition,
Once
you're
transition,
There's some magic button on
Never go
NCAR's
back.
website that once you press it, it's coded to only be a one-way button, so
Yep.
it doesn't go back.
And they've said that it's going to be very deliberate that you have to actually type in transition,
Switching.
so you know.
Yes.
That should
So
have
let's
like
switch over
a
to our last
warning
question.
light.
It probably does. When we get in there, we'll know.